we've got to recognize that for most of us, most people will have a bias. So when I talk about minding your bias, when you're told to mind something, it literally means be mindful of it. Just keep it top of mind. When I say bias, this is helpful. What do people see here? Okay, everyone see the duck? You got the soft bill kind of pointing down. Everyone see the rabbit? Help the person beside you if they need help. Hopefully now you can see that there's two images here. There's a rabbit and a duck. And yet I bet you saw one first. And this picture's in my book, which means through editing I've seen it about 22,000 times. I see the rabbit the clearest. It's no more right or wrong. It's just kind of my bias, my point of view. And what's fascinating with these tensions is on paper makes total sense. But the moment you leave these doors and are dealing with real challenges, real issues, most of the time you will lean towards one side over the other. And that is not a bad thing. In fact, our bias can be a little bit of a superpower. It gives us a unique perspective. It allows us to bring kind of something unique to the teams that we're in. But I will say this, your bias is either helping or hurting you. Relationally, your bias is either adding value or causing polarization. It's never neutral. So I want to explore this one a little bit because this matters. And we're going to do it with one that all of you manage every single day. You manage it with every conversation you have. You manage it with every text and email you send. You need to be professionals who are both truthful and tactful. Truthful is, generally, and some of you will resonate. This would be my bias. I lean towards truth and candor. I like to kind of just say what I think and be clear. And, I'm scrolling through Twitter or X and, Brené Brown's quote just kind of hits me so effectively. Clear is kind. Unclear, unkind. Stop. Stop avoiding tough conversations because you think you're being kind. That's not kind. And I'm like, preach, Brené. Absolutely. And yet, I'm working with Peter, who happens to have a bias, I'm making this up, but towards tactfulness and diplomacy. And not that you're not truthful, but what comes to mind for you is how is this being impacted? How is this impacting? And you're scrolling through X and you didn't even notice Brené Brown's quote, but you sure noticed Adam Grant's. He says, I was just being my excuse I was just being myself is not an excuse for disrespectful behavior. It signals lack of concern for others. Authenticity without empathy is selfish. Authenticity without boundaries is careless. Be true to your values, but show regard for others' values. So let's play with this just for a moment. What I want to do is I want to just explore this, and this is going to be quick, but we got this. We're a pretty capable group. I want to create a bit of a continuum in the room. All right, so similar to the screen, if you lean like me towards truth and candor, you're going to actually just kind of move to this side of the room. And if you'd say it's a strong bias, you can even go towards the doors. If you lean a little bit more towards tactfulness and diplomacy, of course we know that you're truthful, but the thing I see first is impact, you're going to be on this side. All right, and again, closer to the wall, the stronger the bias. And then I'll give you just about 30 seconds to quickly chat with someone close by to kind of talk about why are you standing here? Like, why does this work for you? All right, go for it. Truth and candor on that side, tact and diplomacy on this side. All right, so stay where you are. And I would say that we could have done almost any tension. Optimism, realism, change, stability. You normally will see this. People have strong, sometimes subtle biases. And there's no right or wrong. The goal isn't, although some people would say I'm pretty close to the middle, the goal isn't that we all meet in the middle. The goal, though, is that we know where we're standing. And we use it when it's helpful, and we recognize, like we said earlier, if all I do all the time is live here, this could start to work against me. So for example, I have a pretty strong bias towards truth and candor. I would say that I'm probably standing somewhere around here. Join us. And thank you, exactly. So, and you know what? This works for me in lots of ways. In work, in relationships, in speaking, and similar to probably a few folks over here, I can think of some times where this has gotten me into trouble. Most of those situations were emails I've sent, which I thought were fine, but I also have learned that wasn't received that way. So what I've learned to do, again, I wrote a book that literally says, mind your bias, mind your bias. It's like, okay, Tim, be mindful of this. Don't be someone you're not, but be a good version of who you are. So what I've learned to do, and similar to many of you, there'll be days where I'll fire off 60, 70, 80 emails, but you're just about to send that one where you're like, ooh, this one probably should have one other person read it. But here's the thing. I mean, I'm not going to go deep into this, but we all have what's referred to as a confirmation bias, which generally means once I have a point of view, ooh, I love to be affirmed in that point of view. You know, that's why probably if you lean towards the political left or the political right, you read news sources on that side. Because again, it affirms what we believe. So I know someone should read that email, but because of my confirmation bias, who do you think I go to in the room? Yeah, I'm like, oh, you know why? Because we just click. We just work so well together. So I'm about to send the email, and what are you going to say?
They need to hear it.
So clear.
Yes.
So clear. Yes. Right? So I send it, we high five, you know, things blow up. The next day we're like, can you believe these people? Like, honestly? So here's the thing. Although it would be amazing to have you read my emails, it's not helpful because we see the duck. I need someone who sees the rabbit. And what I would say to all of you is whatever was your crux tension, you need to be thinking, okay, what side do I lean to naturally? And do I have an opposite? And an opposite is a person with a name. Someone who you know is committed to the higher purpose, but gosh, they always seem to see it from a different perspective. And this is actually, we were chatting on lunch about, this is the healthy discomfort. To kind of go to someone on this side of the room and say, and if I was to go to you, Peter, I'm going to say, hey, Peter, I've read this like 3 times. You know, I just want to give you, what are you going to say?
Might want to take a pause before you send that one.
You're going to be really kind in how you say it. But here's the thing, and I have someone on my team, her name's Claudia, and I have done this countless times, and she says, Tim, here's what you've typed, but here's what you're saying. And I'm like, but I'm not. She's like, oh, you are. And honestly, it's my blind spot. I would not see it. And you know what I would say to all of you, even as like an action step, certainly it's helpful for truth and tact, but when you go back to that crux tension, that tension that really is going to be make it or break it in you moving forward in whatever way, ask yourself, okay, where do I lean? And do I have somebody who's my opposite? And would they even know it? Have I given them permission to say, I'm not looking for a cheerleader, I'm looking for a challenger. I want you to push me because I know we're good, but I want that perspective.